So was Laozi a real person, a wise old librarian who once put Confucius in his place? Or maybe he was some kind of deity, born with a full head of gray hair? Or, get this, maybe he never even existed at all. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most mysterious and, honestly, most influential figures in all of philosophy, the Old Master himself. We're going to peel back the layers of legend, explore the totally chaotic world that sparked his ideas, and unpack the powerful concepts that built not just a philosophy, but an entire religion.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll try to find the actual man behind the myth. Then, we'll take a step back into the wild era that made his philosophy so radical. We'll get into the core text, the Tao Te Ching, and unpack its 3 huge ideas. After that, we'll see how this quiet philosophy somehow turned into a full-blown religion, and finally, we'll track Lao Tzu's amazing influence all the way into our world today.
All right, let's get right to it. Who exactly are we talking about when we say Laozi? Well, the answer, it's not so simple.
Right off the bat, we hit a massive clue. Lao Tzu isn't a personal name like, Socrates or Plato. It's a title, a sign of respect, Old Master. And that tells you something absolutely crucial. His identity is built around this idea of ancient wisdom, not the biography of some specific guy. He's more like an anonymous, timeless voice of truth.
And this slide, wow, it lays out the 2 sides of the story perfectly. On one hand, you've got the traditional account, and it's an amazing story. This guy, Li is a royal archivist in the 6th century BC. He's so brilliant that he even meets a young Confucius and totally blows his mind. The legend says he got so fed up with society that he just rode off on an ox to live as a hermit. But before he could disappear, a border guard begged him to write down his wisdom, and so he did, cranking out the entire Tao Te Ching in one go. Pretty cool, right? But then, there's modern scholarship. Most historians today think a single Laozi probably never existed. They see him as a composite figure, a legend, and his book as a collection of wisdom gathered over centuries by lots of different people.
So whether Laozi was one man or many, these ideas didn't just pop out of thin air. To really get Taoism, you have to understand the turbulent, violent world that it came from.
The philosophy we're talking about comes from China's spring and autumn period, and let me tell you, it was anything but peaceful. This was a time of incredible conflict and social collapse. The central government was falling apart. Local warlords were constantly battling for power. It was a mess. People felt like society had just lost its way, that morality was in total decay. And into this world of ambition, war, and chaos, Taoism offered something completely different, a way out, a retreat from all the fighting, and a return to a more natural way of living.
And that radical alternative was all captured in one short, incredibly powerful book that would become one of the most translated texts in human history, the Tao Te Ching.
The title itself, Tao Te Ching, it basically tells you the whole story. You can translate it as the classic of the way and its virtue. This is the playbook. The Tao is the way, that natural, invisible current that runs through the entire universe. And Te is the virtue, or maybe even the power that you get when you stop fighting that current and just align with it. The whole book is really a guide to tapping into this fundamental energy of the cosmos.
And the way this book is written is it's totally unique. It doesn't lay out a logical argument like a Greek philosopher would. No, it speaks in riddles and poems and paradoxes. It points toward truths that you can't really nail down with words. And unlike, say, the writings of Confucius, there's no master character telling you what to do. That, plus the fact that it almost never mentions specific historical events, gives the whole thing this feeling of timeless universal wisdom. And that makes sense, since the earliest pieces we found are from the late 4th century BC, which supports that whole idea of it being a collection built up over time.
Okay, so what's actually in this timeless text? What are the big ideas? Let's break down the 3 absolute keys to unlocking the philosophy of the Tao. First, and you can't get anywhere without this one, is the Tao itself. It's described as the source of everything, the hidden pattern that the whole universe follows. Now, it's not a god, not in the way we usually think of one. It's more like a natural law, like gravity, but for everything. The Tao is unbelievably powerful, but at the same time, it's humble. It's like water. It flows around things. It doesn't just smash through them. So here's the million-dollar question. How do you live in harmony with this Tao? The answer is this incredible concept, Wu Wei. Now, this is so often translated as non-action, and that is completely wrong. It does not mean sitting on your couch and doing nothing. It means effortless action. It means action without forcing. It's about letting things happen instead of making them happen. Think of a skilled sailor. They don't fight the wind and the waves. They use them to go where they want to go. That is Wu Wei.
And when you really master Wu Wei, the result you get is zitteran. This basically means naturalness, or spontaneity. This is the ideal state of being in Taoism. It's about stripping away all the artificial stuff, all the selfish desires, the social pressures, and getting back to a simple, humble state that's in perfect harmony with the flow of life. It is the exact opposite of that ambitious, forceful action that just throws everything off balance.
But the story doesn't stop there. Over the centuries, the figure of the old master went through this amazing transformation. He went from being a wise philosopher to being an actual god.
Yeah, starting around the Han Dynasty, Taoism started to become an organized religion, and they put Laozi right at the top. He wasn't just a wise man anymore, he was a divine being, a living embodiment of the Tao itself. And the myths that grew up around him are just wild. One says his mother conceived him just by looking at a falling star. Another claims he stayed in her womb for 62 years and was born as a fully grown man with a gray beard, as a symbol of his built-in wisdom.
And this whole deification thing really hit its peak during the Tang Dynasty. The emperors, whose family name happened to also be Li, claimed that Laozi was their direct ancestor. So, naturally, they started giving him these unbelievably grand titles. I mean, just look at this. He goes from supremely mysterious and primordial emperor to, by 754, the great sage ancestor and heavenly emperor. The quiet philosopher who preached humility was now officially an imperial god.
So, after all this, what is the legacy of this mysterious figure and his short, cryptic book? Well, its influence is way bigger and, frankly, way weirder than you might expect, reaching far beyond ancient China. The influence of this little book is just staggering, and it branches out in all these directions that Laozi could never have imagined. In politics, his ideas about humble, hands-off leadership have been studied for centuries, but his teachings have also been picked up by anti-authoritarian movements who love the idea of the weak overcoming the strong. And it gets better. In the West, you've got some economists who call Laozi the world's first libertarian. And even famous sci-fi authors like Ursula K. Le Guin saw these deep connections between Taoism and anarchism. The big idea for all of them is that real power isn't something you take by force, it's something you align with.
And that really brings us to the core challenge that Laozi throws at our modern world. I mean, we are obsessed with hustle, with ambition, with trying to control every little thing. His philosophy pushes back against all of that. It asks us to see the power in yielding, the genius in keeping things simple, and the amazing strength you can find in effortless action. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. In a world that is constantly screaming at you to do more, what can we possibly learn from a 2,500-year-old philosophy that whispers, sometimes, the most powerful move is to do nothing at all?